Hello, Arjava. Great that we have another meeting to discuss several important topics. At least for us, they are important, and I hope that for some of the people who listen, they also are of interest.
Yeah, it's also nice to see you again. I'm getting used to the technology and getting used to talking like this. Still, I would prefer to do it in private, but this way
Sure.
it's also good because we can share our opinions, our experience, and
Yes.
our
Yes.
little bit of wisdom that we have with others, and
Yes.
under normal circumstances that wouldn't be possible. So very good.
Absolutely. I'm very happy that we have this technology available and that we can reach out to so many people. Otherwise, we would have to travel a little bit more, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so today I think we have some nice subjects, some nice topics to talk about.
Yeah.
One of them was what healing really means on a spiritual level.
Well, yeah, that's some years ago. I made a teaching video, a recording for my master students, master healers, um, to just make a definition about what a state of health is. And the World Health Organization, they had a very interesting statement about that. They said the state of complete well-being on all levels, that is health. But they did not say how they would measure that. So I think it's highly subjective.
I agree. I agree. Yeah? So from my point of view, from a Biosen point of view, there is no perfect health.
Yeah,
Yeah, but there's only some kind of state of balance. And balance
yeah,
always requires that you go out of balance to be able to come back into balance. Yeah? So imagine you want to walk, simple
yeah,
example.
yes.
When
Yin
you
and
want
yang.
to walk, you have to
Mhm.
lift one leg, creating an imbalance.
All right.
Yeah, because now you
Right.
can fall easily, but you're
Yeah.
gonna have to lift that leg to put it in
Mhm.
front of the other, and then again you're a bit in imbalance,
Yes.
right? Because you have to bring the other leg back. And with health, I see it the same way. So from a Biosen point of view, really the body accumulates toxins from the environment. There's no way around it. We cannot live in a clinically
No.
sterile environment. We don't. Yeah? So you take in toxins through the air that you breathe, through the food that you eat, the water that you drink, the maybe medications that you take if you have to take something, the toxic thoughts and emotions that we play with in our hearts and minds. And those toxins are not, let's say, morally bad because
No.
they're part of our environment, part of our earth, but the body can't metabolize them or eliminate them. That means they get
Mm.
accumulated in the body, and when that accumulation becomes too big,
Mhm.
then the body detoxes. And if
Mm.
everything, all systems work beautifully, the body detoxes by itself. If not, you maybe catch a cold or have some kind of a flu,
Fever.
and fever, or maybe some discomfort, tension. And if none of that works, then you get sick. Yeah? So
Right. Right.
sickness is a natural part of life.
Mm. Mm.
It's normal, and it has no relation to your ability, let's say, your ability to heal or help others. Yeah?
No, no, not at all.
Actually, it does. Wait, it does. Yeah? So, if you have never suffered,
Mhm.
okay, how you're going to help somebody with suffering? You wouldn't know what that is.
No compassion.
No compassion and no real first-hand experience. So,
Right.
any kind of sickness or not feeling quite right or anything in that direction helps you to be able to help others. That's
Yes,
my
trains
opinion.
you. It
Yeah.
trains you. A lesson I've learned from homeopathy is that each substance can be a toxin or something which heals. It just depends on the quantity. And that the toxins which you have in your body, of course, they create miscomfort, they create issues, maybe even dangerous issues. But on the other hand, they always have a message from the creator, in my understanding, what you could start to learn, that you do not ignore it, that you do not split it off, that you go into it and try to grab the deeper understanding of what that is. So for me, a detox process also is always a process where I need to widen my consciousness, where I need to love more, to learn to love more. And I guess that everybody, when being in contact with an environment which we cannot avoid, has so many chances to live and to learn through these experiences. So I do not think that there will be a complete health for a long period of time, or that this is something which we should go for. So my idea is that when I'm ill, Reiki helps me to understand my illness. Reiki helps me to have a natural way out of illness, back to health. But I do not think that if we treat ourselves enough, then we will become Supergirl or Superman and never will become ill anymore.
No, I agree. Yeah. So health is a question of balance.
Mhm.
It's something that moves, yeah, that's alive with the seasons, with your life cycles and everything. So sometimes maybe you're more healthy, sometimes you're less healthy. And all of life is part of that. There is no perfect health, and there's no need for it to be also, just as you said, that
Mhm.
it helps us understand ourselves more deeply. Yeah? And that, I would say, is kind of true for the physical body, but also for the mental, emotional bodies. Yeah? If you, we all have issues. Yeah, maybe we have
Yeah, yeah,
some
sure.
issues from childhood. Maybe you feel that you're not good enough, or that you should change in some way or another, or you have a sadness that you haven't been able to deal with or so. But look back, your issues have really opened up your view of yourself and of life. They are good. We learn from our mistakes. Yeah? We learn best from things that we don't do well physically or
Mhm.
psycho-emotionally. So for me, this is not the point. And from, say, I'm not a Buddhist, yeah, but from a Buddhist point of view, they say everything is subject to change.
Mhm.
Yeah, the only constant in life is change, and that applies to our body as well. And we know that we are born, and in the beginning, from being born, begins that long process, hopefully very long process of dying. And the illness may aid you in that. I once read a really quite a corny statement from an Indian spiritual master who was
Mhm.
well known in the 60s, also in Europe. His name was Meher Baba. You know,
Ah, Meher Baba.
everybody
Yeah, yeah,
knows
yeah.
this song, Don't Worry, Be Happy. That was his motto. Yeah, and the rock group, the Who, they were really into him, and they wrote the whole that rock opera. Tommy is all about his work. Yeah,
Wow.
so he was a beautiful Sufi master, from
Mhm.
mystic
Mhm.
Islam, and he said somewhere that illness doesn't kill anyone, but death does.
Yes.
Yeah, so it
Oh,
sounds kind
oh.
of ridiculous. You go like, what a stupid statement. But if you look deeply into it, you see the illness works for some other instance.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, so it's not a bad thing. It helps you. It's here for helping you. Everything that is happening in your life, whether good or bad. Okay, the bad things are difficult to accept, but a few years later, when you look back, you go, wow, yeah, it really helped me to come to terms with something. So, as you said, we are not here to become superwoman or superman. We would be totally alone, lonely.
Oh yeah.
Our partners, if we are lucky to have one, would leave us, divorce us. How horrible it would be if you would be a saint, always right, always kind, always, yeah, it's unbearable to be with somebody like that. It's nice to be in a relationship, whether it's a love relationship or friendship or acquaintance, with people who are human, yeah, who don't pretend anything, who have weakness, who have tears, who have pain, who have insecurity. It's nice. Yeah? It's nice to be human, and I think we should learn to appreciate our weakness also as God given, yeah, or given by the universe, something beautiful. When you see somebody crying, for example, yeah? Wow, how beautiful they look sometimes. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Really amazing.
I think without weakness, there is no love. So why do you need love if everybody's perfect? So if we want to learn love, we need an environment which is not perfect, and we need ourselves not to be perfect. Uh, in my understanding, love is something which is like gravitation. It tries to bring you into oneness. On the other hand, we have the ego that is like a centrifugal force that tries to bring us away from oneness. And if both are stable, we have an orbit around something like the planets do, and then we experience love. But the more we move around our center, the different experiences we have with what we love. And I guess that only when we experience the absence of love, we understand that we need love. So if there would be always plenty of love, how would we know that we need it?
Yes, you need the valleys, yeah? The
Mhm.
valleys and the peaks both.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
oh, yeah.
there is nothing. Yeah? I agree. Yeah? So celebrate your weakness, enjoy it, and don't judge it. And I think one of the biggest illnesses that we have to battle with on earth is the illness of not wanting this,
Mhm.
but wanting this, or thinking that I am right and you are wrong.
Mhm.
Yeah, of always excluding certain things. For example, maybe your laughter is okay, your
Right.
tears are not. Yeah? Your health is okay, but your cold or your diabetes or whatever is not. Yeah? And on a mental level,
Mhm.
I'm doing the right thing and
Mhm.
you are not, and I judge you for it, and I don't respect you because you're not doing what I think should be the
Well,
right thing. And we have that in society and politics terribly, yeah.
oh yeah, oh boy,
But we
especially now.
also,
Yeah,
especially now with all the racial difficulties in the US, which is so sick, yeah.
it's yeah.
But we also have it in Reiki. Yeah? There are so
Yes,
many
we have.
people who play the Reiki police, who say, you should do this and not that. And that reminds me of something that we, both of us, discussed last week in German when we had
Mhm.
our
Mhm.
German talk. There are certain things that we don't agree on.
Mhm.
Yeah. And look at us. Yeah. We are friends. And
Sure.
I think it's beautiful that you do what you do, and
Mhm.
I think you probably
I,
feel the
I love
same.
you doing your stuff, because that's a part of you. And I think it's great that we have different perspectives. What would yoga be without the different styles? And I think that it's just a different approach. Some people would like that approach, other people like that approach. Come on, who are we to judge them whether they are better or not? I think it's a different thing from if you state I want to have that kind of outcome, exactly that rational kind of outcome. Then we can discuss what is the shortest way there, or what is the shortest way which you individually can go, or you
Right.
might have the best. Yeah, but if it's that people need a spiritual path, come on, there are so many different approaches to that, and I think they are all valid.
Right, they're all
Yeah,
valid, and we have to remember, first of all, we all do Reiki,
yeah,
yeah, and the energy that comes out of our hands
it's the
doesn't have
same.
a label on it.
No. Mm.
Yeah, it doesn't say, okay, this is Rainbow Reiki, or this is Jikiden
No,
Reiki, or
no,
this
not
is
at all.
Reiki from Mars. Yeah, it's what comes out of there has no label, and it's just plain beautiful and clean. Yeah,
It's
and
not Japanese, it's not Chinese.
no, and
No.
this is good to remember as a
Yeah.
basic understanding, and that the Reiki community basically is one big family with different opinions and different ways of working. But it's nice to
Mm-hmm.
remember that, and not to judge
Hmm.
people for what they do or for what they don't do. Yeah?
No,
So
no.
if I'm, let's say, I'm really content with what I
Hmm.
do I put somebody else down? No, why?
There's no reason for that. We can do our things, and as long as we are serious and try to do our best, where is the problem? You see, when people come to me and ask me, what about what they do in Japan with Reiki, and who knows about how Uzui and Hayashi and did that, then I recommend you, because I know that in Jikiden Reiki school, you collect exactly this knowledge. I will never be able to do that because I walked another path. And that is something important. In my understanding, what you and Tadao are promoting is the roots of Reiki. And only if you have healthy roots, you have healthy tree.
Yeah, and you know, the way I look at things
Mm,
is kind of egoistic. I don't mean it in a bad way, yeah? But what I do is I'm very reflective. Yeah?
mhm, mhm,
So when something happens to me, I think about it. I try to go into it deeply, and the first thing I do is to see if I feel comfortable with
mhm,
something.
mhm. Right,
Yeah? And if I don't do it.
right.
Yeah? And if I do it. And I mean, no one can tell me that I'm wrong or I shouldn't be doing this or anything. Yeah?
Mhm.
So I filter everything through, let's say, my own wisdom or my own heart, my own truth, and I
Sure.
stick to that. Yeah, and
Mhm,
that's it. And that, of course, is super subjective and unique. Yeah? So what feels good for me will
mhm.
feel maybe very different for you. What feels good for you will feel different for me. You just follow your own path. This is your life.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah? And you live it, and don't allow anybody to dictate you what you must do. Yeah? There is no such thing.
Yeah.
It's all life is all, in my experience, from, let's say, the journey from ignorance to some kind of enlightenment. Don't understand it as a big word, just meaning somebody who's in tune with himself, with his own essence. And that's it. Beautiful.
Absolutely. Wasn't there a book title from Osho? My path is the path of the white clouds.
Yeah, yeah. The path of the wild clouds.
Yeah, I love this book very much because of promoting this individuality. Just if you look around, there is nobody like you are, and uh, everybody has beauty and has wisdom. But if we try to be a different person, then we cannot have that because we can only have it our way. And I think Reiki helps us grow into our way.
That's my experience too. Like, if you imagine that you want to be different than what you are, yeah, then it's like the carrot that is in front of the horse's nose. And by
Yeah, yeah.
definition, you can never reach it, because you can never be different from what you are. And why would you want that? Yeah? Why don't you just accept yourself as you are, embrace yourself and celebrate that? That's beautiful. And I've seen many, many people in my life, and some of those people seem to be at ease with who they are, and that is so attractive. Huh?
Yes,
It's so
absolutely.
nice, huh? When you see somebody who's confident and not in an egoistic way,
No.
and at ease and content with who she or he is. That's so beautiful, and I think this is something that we can aspire to, and nobody can help you with this. This is your own work, yeah? And do it joyfully and playfully. Yeah? Then you
Absolutely.
have a good life. Yeah?
That's also a feature of people who are, let's say, chronically ill, or who have had some uh, issues they were born with. Um, there are some really wise guys like that who just made their peace with their situation and learned from it. And I have had some occasional meetings with people who have learned from their situation, and I was always amazed about that wisdom, how they handled their situation, which I do not know, but by listening to them and their wisdom, I can get a better insight into what life is all about, because they know this better than I do, because I don't have these shortcomings.
Yeah, I think that our mistakes, our shortcomings, our challenges, they really are
Yeah.
purifying agents to purify the heart and to break up, to smash the ego a bit. Yeah? Because
Mhm.
if you, let's say, if you had a very inflated sense of self, yeah, that's ego.
Mhm.
Yeah, and when you have mistakes, you have to acknowledge that you're not
Sure.
super unfailable God's gift to humanity, yeah, but that you also, excuse my language, a little shit. And that's beautiful, because
Yeah.
it crumbles that ego somewhat. Yeah? And those of you listening who have kids, you know that really well. No? That kids
Mhm.
have a great skill of putting that mirror in front of your face all the time. Yeah? So use any method, any
Mhm.
situation to let that ego crumble a little bit. Yeah? Don't be afraid of it. So when you're feeling sick or sad or vulnerable, use that for transformation. Is beautiful. It's a beautiful tool. Yeah? So I'm all for it. Sometimes when you see, I said earlier, you see people who are crying, they may look so beautiful. Also, people who are suffering a lot, they have
Mhm.
this incredible depth, yeah?
They do,
and
yeah.
and they have things to teach you. I remember once, about 15 years ago, I was in Argentina working on a 26-year-old young, beautiful young woman who had cancer from childhood, and
Oh.
she passed away sometime later, and I was treating her every day for 3, 4 weeks with a group of people, and all of us felt the same. We shared it afterwards that actually the healing was given by her
Mhm.
to us. Yeah?
Mm.
We all learned humility, kindness, openness. Yeah? In the face of the imminent death, yeah? It was incredible. Yeah?
Yeah.
So no need to be always well and
So you do not think that people who are sick in any way, that they cannot heal others with Reiki, which I have read quite a few times, that some some guy stated that, oh, when people are not well, they are not spiritually developed enough to heal others. And that Usui had stated that. I never have seen something like that.
No, look at his life. Huh?
Yeah, yeah.
So he died very early with 60,
Hmm.
61,
Yeah.
from a cerebral hemorrhage. He had 2 strokes previously.
Okay.
They say that the first one he kind of healed himself.
Hmm.
And the second one, if you look at some pictures, you can see his
Hmm.
face is like this, contorted, and he's obviously not doing very well. We don't live forever. We all know that. Yeah?
That's
And
right. Yeah.
if you live your life fully, and it is short, beautiful. Yeah? And if you
Yes.
live a very long life, healthy, in quotation marks, and you live it in unconsciousness and arrogance, you
Hmm.
wasted it. Yeah? So it's not the years, but it's the
It's how you
quality,
live it. Yeah.
how you live, the quality
Hmm.
of each moment. And Usui Sensei kept treating people until he died.
Hmm.
Yeah? So
Hmm.
even when he was not well, he was still treating people. Okay,
Hmm.
my advice is, if you're really not well, if you're suffering a lot, then perhaps not the right time to do treatments, but to lay down yourself and let
Hmm.
somebody treat you when you
Right.
need
Right.
it. Yeah? But that doesn't mean that you can't do Reiki, because the Reiki is not yours anyway.
No, it just is passed through our body. So what the heck is a problem when having any issue with your health? Because Reiki is always pure. It's always doing the same thing.
Right, exactly. And one thing that I've been considering deeply recently is that I very often hear um, Reiki practitioners to think that they can make the Reiki better by something that they do or don't do.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, for example, maybe you think your Reiki is better if you're a vegetarian, or your
Yeah.
Reiki is better if you
Don't
do
having
this.
sex, not drinking
Right.
coffee, no alcohol, no Eisbein and Wiener Schnitzel.
No breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Reiki is it just is by itself,
It just is.
and
Right.
it is beautiful, and there's nothing you can do to make it better. So if you think that you must get into a meditative state while you're doing it,
Hmm.
no, you don't. If you do, and that very often happens by itself, it's beautiful, but that's good for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah?
It
And
might create a better rapport with the client if the
yeah,
client is open to that, but that is
yeah,
not always the case.
no, and it has nothing to do with the energy coming out of your
No,
hand. That will
not at all.
do its work,
Hmm.
yeah, even if you're watching a wrestling match.
Yes,
Yeah,
they
so
might be quite beautiful. Often after classes, I watch Hulk Hogan and the Hitman, Bret Hart, and so on, because I think, oh, these guys, they are really sweating, and I'm sitting comfortably on my sofa and think, ah, and I have free time now, and I just drink my green tea, and they are really sweating. That's great. So I can relax better.
yeah, so this is a misconception that you
Yeah.
would have to be something to be able to do Reiki, and not only on the physical level, of course, but also on the psycho-emotional level. Yeah? So if you have suffered with something,
Mhm.
yeah, let's say a phobia or some kind of psychological something,
Mhm.
actually, and you've passed through it, maybe with Reiki, then you can treat people, your clients, better because you know it.
You understand it.
You
Yes.
understand it. Yeah,
Mhm.
beautiful. So there's no point in saying that how can he try to heal people when he himself is not completely healed. The idea of this completion or 100%, I think this is our big mistake. Yeah?
That is a real sickness. Let's say a spiritual sickness. To promote this kind of ideas. It also puts a lot of pressure on people when they have been at a Reiki class and they now have Reiki in their hands and they could do so much good for themselves and for others, and someone tells them, you know, you must be completely healed, otherwise what you pass on is no good healing and so on, then come on, that is not something which helps people to find out the genius within them. And I think everybody has it.
Right. And when all your work is done, you die.
Yeah, guess so.
Then you won't be able to do any more Reiki. You're gone, huh, when everything is done. So keep
Next time.
some problems, keep some projects, so
Right.
you can be here a little bit longer. When you've completed your mission, it's time to go. Yeah? So that's how I look at it. And it's nice to be human. It's lovable to make mistakes and have weak sides and all that. It's good. This reminds me of something that we learned from the Usui Association many years ago, already in the late 90s, from Ogawa Sensei, one of the Shihans of the Usui Association. He had said that Usui Sensei had divided Reiki originally into 6 levels.
Okay.
Like many of the martial arts schools do.
Yeah.
And the lowest was the 6th.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you proceed, yeah, then at some point came Shoden and Okuden, the 1st and 2nd degree, and then came the Shimpiden, or the mystical teaching, the teaching degree. And he himself said that he is on level 2, not 1. Yeah? And he said level 1 is empty. And if you, especially if you're already a teacher, if you keep that attitude of not knowing and keeping the beginner's mind, then maybe one day you can become even better than me, advanced than me, and maybe you will reach that level. So always keep learning, keep striving. Don't ever think that you know it all. And his dream was that his student would surpass him.
Yes, that is something very, very interesting and fascinating for me. I've done a lot of martial arts in my life, and by doing this, I got some idea of Chinese, Korean, Japanese, Vietnamese culture. And what fascinated me, the masters who were really, let's say, where you felt that they are masters once they were coming in a room, you know, that kind of feeling. So always they stated, my aim is that my students are way better than what I can do. They didn't say, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, so when I die, then the Himalaya is gone away from Earth and so on. They said, no, I'm just the ladder you can step on.
Right.
That is fascinating for me. That is, in my understanding, the master's mind.
Yeah, and if you look at your students, you have taught thousands of people, so have I. Yeah? When you see somebody who's really embracing the teaching, well, what a feeling, right? And you think, wow, yeah, it was worth it, you know? So this is the proper attitude of a teacher.
Yes.
Want not to keep your students small, but to encourage them, and that hopefully they will surpass you one day. That would be wow, great. The right attitude of the teacher.
Yes. That's interesting. Did he make some more definition about these levels, or was it just that this is, let's say, the beginner's level, and this is where you get symbols, and this is where you get into meditation or so?
No, there is a whole structure. Yeah? The 6th degree was like a pre-Reiki 1 level.
Oh, really?
Where you received a major initiation and some kind of lecture, but we don't know what the themes were of that. Maybe physiology, maybe the spiritual background of Reiki. I don't know. Huh?
I once
And
have heard that that Takata was given a kind of distant learning course from Hayashi. Maybe that this was something like that.
that's what I think, and I'd be
Yeah,
very interested to see what that was. Huh?
yeah, yeah.
I suspect the same, huh?
Hmm.
But I don't know. Right? It's just a kind of an educated guess. And then the fifth level, again, you would get one leiju or attunement and some lecture. And then the third again, and then you could learn Shoden, Reiki 1.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the first three levels were given by local teachers, let's say in your case, your students
Hmm.
somewhere. And then if they wanted to learn Reiki 1, they would do it with you. They,
Ah,
your
okay.
student would, your teacher student would introduce the new student to you,
Hmm.
yeah, for
Hmm.
Reiki 1 and 2. And then the teachers level had, again, had the three different subdivisions. The first one was the assistant teacher, then the senior teacher, and then the Dai Shihan. Dai means big, but also means whole in this case, yeah? Which
Hmm.
means the one who can teach the whole teaching.
I see. Hmm.
The, the permit. Yeah? So in the martial arts, it would be like the dance. Huh?
Hmm. Hmm.
So you
Yeah,
have,
yeah. That
yeah,
dance system, I think, is a good idea because when I started with Uzui Reiki, end of the 80s, and I've heard, well, then you do third third degree training and then you are master. I thought, in martial arts, this is just the beginning. When you are black belt, then you really start to learn, you know. So,
mm, mm,
and you need someone who takes care for you because
yeah, yeah.
there is so much which goes on which you don't know if there is not someone who has already walked that path, you know.
Yeah, and then he put himself on the second level, but the first
Mhm.
one was empty. Yeah? So it's kind
Yeah.
of a trick to have kind of a hierarchy to give the structure. And the hierarchy is not because one is better than the other
Mhm.
on
Mhm.
the human level, but it's so we can divide the work easily. We don't need to discuss it. It's more like, okay, I do the dishes and you do the vacuuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have different responsibilities. So it's not a
Right.
hierarchy. Nothing is better or
No.
worse. Yeah? And then with creating this first level empty, yeah, he kind of destroys the whole hierarchy thing again. It's very clever.
Yeah,
Huh?
but it's important, you know. I call myself Grandmaster of Rainbow Reiki. Often this is misunderstood that I say I'm Grandmaster of Reiki. I never did. I cannot. But when people ask me, "Oh, Grandmaster, it's a Grandmaster initiation," the Grandmaster does the paperwork. The Grandmaster is the guy who sits on the desk and fills out all the forms and makes the whole system function. So I don't think that many people would like to be Grandmaster, you know. And in my understanding, that's a kind of well, organizational level thing that you have to set the structures and make the meetings happen and make the masters come together and these kind of things. But what I don't see is that grandmaster is someone who is spiritually more developed. It is just like you have a certain management job where you are in charge for something.
Yeah, plus you have gone through your training and you have
Well,
acquired a
yeah.
certain practical
Mhm.
knowledge. Yeah? So,
Yes, practical
which
knowledge.
is another really good subject. Yeah? That
Mhm.
in in Japan, the pricing of the first degree and the second degree was very different from the way we had it in the US and in Europe. Yeah? So like
Really?
when you and I learned, it was like Reiki 1 was, let's say, $250, Reiki 2 was 500, yeah? And then the more.
Mhm.
And in Japan was the other way around. Yeah, that Reiki 1 was more expensive
Okay.
than Reiki 2, because in Reiki 1, that's where the main difference happens, where the magic happens. Before you don't have Reiki, now you do.
Ah, I see. I see.
Yeah.
Ah,
So,
okay. Yeah.
yeah. And
Mm.
this is interesting. And we discussed the same theme also in German the other day. There is some kind of misunderstanding that Reiki 2 is better than Reiki 1 and
Oh, yeah.
Reiki 3 is
Mm.
better than Reiki 2. And the students, the Reiki 2 students shouldn't be talking to the Reiki 1 student, and all this
The master
horrible.
has to sit separate in the restaurant, so not to be contaminated by the low-level energies of Reiki 1 people. Come on, we are all human,
Yeah, and
and
we're
God
all
is
the
within all
same.
of us.
We're all the same.
Yeah.
And I remember last time we talked, we were saying, I think you were saying that, okay, somebody who has only, in quotation marks, Reiki 1,
Mhm.
who does treatments every day, will have more energy than
Yeah.
somebody who's a teacher who doesn't do anything.
Definitely, we found this out when doing this scientific research with Professor Ignatov, that you could see directly this guy is doing everyday Reiki treatments in his practice. Such a Reiki muscle. The Reiki itself is not better; it's the same energy, but
Yes.
but you can have so much or you can have so much, and that makes a difference.
Yeah, so this is an important part to understand for
Yeah.
everybody. We are all sitting in the same boat. Nobody is
Mhm,
better.
mhm,
Nobody is higher. There is nothing like that. Yeah?
mhm.
Nothing at all. Yeah? We're all little people, and it's nice. Makes us all the same. Yeah? Beautiful.
There's
Yeah,
this wonderful quote in Buddhism: "If you meet Buddha on the way, kill him."
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So just embrace yourself as
Yeah.
you are. That's the best medicine. That's the only thing. Don't look at other people, what they are, and how they look and how they act. And most of it is show anyway.
I did
Yeah.
not find any information that Uzui or Hayashi did some big buhai about their personality, that they wanted to have a personal cult around them, like in some sects there is, or churches. Do you have any information about that?
No, not at all. The story about Usui Sensei's
Yeah.
enlightenment, yeah,
Hmm.
is that he found himself, or he found enlightenment on Mount Kulama while he was fasting in 1922 in March,
Hmm.
and that he came back transformed. So when your ego crumbles up, and I know that all of us have had small experiences like that. You may not realize, but you did have it. Yeah?
Hmm.
But just remember when there were times when your ego
Sure.
was shaken up, yeah? Was crumbled. Then
Mhm.
what do you want after that? You want to be rich, you want to have girls or boys, or you want to
Oh,
have power over people? No, no, you just want to
yeah.
share your happiness, your love, your kindness. And when you do, and when you realize that your ego is a mental construct and it doesn't really have substance,
Hmm.
you see the same in the other. Yeah, so once you identify that thing, you can't really get into it ever again. It
Right.
loses its strength. Yeah. So
Right.
with Usui Sensei, I'm sure he didn't have that, and with Hayashi Sensei the same. Just look at
Hmm.
it. Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were not egoistic at all. Yeah?
That's what I find fascinating by reading your book in German. It's Glücklichsein. In English would be being happy. I
Mm.
think this is one of your best books. It's really such a good read because it covers all these kind of perspectives. I've told people about that regularly because I don't know any book on the market who really covers that.
Oh, thank you for saying that. We when we published it,
Yeah.
was our publisher. and me, we both thought that that was going to be a big hit, and then
Yes,
it
me too.
turned into a complete flop. Huh?
500,000 copies in 1 year or something like that, you know,
Yeah,
because
nothing,
everybody would love to know that.
nothing. You never know. Yeah? And
Yeah.
because of that, we never even translated it. But since you're saying it, maybe it's time to translate it.
You see, maybe it was just not the zeitgeist, because at the moment there is this thing with a meaningful life, with being sensitive, with
Mm.
being aware of what's going on, and I think this book of yours really hits this string, you know.
Mm. Okay,
So maybe it's time to republish.
yeah, good. So another subject that I think we wanted to cover was Reiki with crystals and
Yeah, and
mixing
massage.
Reiki with massage and
Mhm.
other techniques.
Uzui
And
was doing some massage when he was giving Reiki, right?
yes,
Mm.
yeah, light massage and tapping, yeah, those
Mm.
kind of things that I use in Oriental medicine all the time. Huh? And also crystals. And I remember
Ah.
when we met, it was so funny, yeah, because you had some troubles
Mhm.
because you were using crystals with Reiki and you were told
Right.
that you shouldn't do it and your teacher didn't appreciate it at all. And then I came along and I wrote that Usui Sensei was giving crystals to his students. I remember how
Yeah.
happy you were that
Yes.
you followed your wisdom, yeah? And
Mm.
that it
Mm.
was the same. Yeah?
Mm.
So Usui Sensei used to program somehow crystals, but only quartz crystals, to give to his
Mm.
students for as a healing tool. Yeah? So he would travel all over Japan
Mm.
and treat people. So maybe he could go to a certain place only once a year, and then he gave people these crystal balls that they could put on their body when his hands were not available, but they carried
Mm.
his
Mm.
energy. And quartz crystals are really good for that. They hold that. I
Yes.
don't know, forever is a big word, but
Well,
perhaps.
they are very special, you know. I've got this from Aikido, because the Aikido masters, they were putting their key into crystals and gave this to the students, like Koichi Tohei and Morihei Ueshiba, you know,
I
for
didn't know that.
for meditation. And they have this special mudra for strengthening the hara, where they put the crystal also in. And I thought that might be a good idea, because it helps people to get more key. And then I found out that when I place a clear quartz under my palm and put it somewhere in the body, then the body opens more up to Reiki out of whatever reasons. And then I was running into some research by a former IBM scientist, a really famous IBM scientist, Marcel Vogel. And he had so much to do with the silicium dioxide because of the semiconductors, you know. And then he was aware, after a time, after he had found, I don't know, 20, 30 different patents for IBM, including the hard drive, that this silicium dioxide reacts to our emotions and our thinking. And then he developed a special cut for the crystals, the Marcel Vogel cut, and created a kind of crystal energy work when he was retiring, and was teaching this to people. And I thought, wow, this guy really had some interesting insights into crystals, because he said that clear quartz, it can really get in contact with you. It has a kind of presence. It is spiritually, you know, addressable, and it stores information and can amplify those. And I guess that people like Uzui and Morihei Ueshiba, they just knew about that, because well, shamanism is big in Japan in a certain way.
Yeah, so they all use crystals. Yeah?
Mm.
From Usui Sensei, Hayashi Sensei did, my teacher Tiyoko Yamaguchi, she did. Yeah, nice, no problem. Yeah? So the question that is often being asked is, okay, people ask me, okay, so what Reiki do you do? Do you do Jikiden Reiki? I say, well, okay, I teach Jikiden Reiki, but when I lay my hands on it, doesn't have a label. Yeah?
No.
It's
No.
just Reiki. Yeah? And
Yeah,
I
right.
personally don't really mix things when I teach.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. Let me rephrase it. It's not I don't really mix things. I don't mix things when I teach. But when you give treatments, of course, your
Mm-hmm.
whole life experience, everything is there. Yeah? If you have
Yes.
knowledge of psychology or anything, it's there for
Craniosacral.
you.
Yeah.
Or craniosacral, it's there for you, for your clients, for your work. Yeah? Everything comes together. You can't separate anything. And
No, you are
Reiki
that. Yeah.
is beautiful in that it comes out whatever you do when you touch somebody,
Right.
even if you don't, it
Mm-hmm.
comes out of your body. Boom. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. One topic I think we also have on the plate today is about are the students of a Reiki teacher a commodity which you can trade and own, so that if a student has first degree with you, that he or she is never allowed to go somewhere else, you know.
Yeah, of course not. They all belong to me.
So you have quarters on Lesbos Island for them.
Refugee camps.
I see, I see.
Where all the students are locked. They have to give all their, when they come in, they have to take off their expensive
Ah,
jewelry and give it to me.
very good.
Yeah, has to be like that.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's amazing what people think. Yeah. So
Yeah,
many Reiki teachers behave very territorial, like tomcats.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they spray their scent everywhere, and they say, "Oh, you must do only with me. You cannot go to somebody else," and they get so upset. I remember one student of mine who's become a good friend now, about 18 years ago, when I moved back to Germany from Japan. He told his teacher that, hey, the guy who wrote the Reiki Fire and the Sui Handbook, he's back in Düsseldorf, and shall we go? I saw he does evening meetings there, exchange, Reiki shares. Huh? And his teacher looked at him and said, if you go there, you never come to my house ever again. Yeah, and then of
Seriously?
course, seriously. And of course, my friend, he got so
Mhm.
shocked. He thought, oh my, this is a sect. I don't want to be a member of the sect. That he left that teacher. It came to me and came to me, and he's been a teacher in his own right for
Mhm.
many, many years. Yeah? So it's very common that the teachers try to control or make their students their property, and that's really sick.
Mhm.
Nobody owns anybody.
No, no.
So if you're looking for a teacher, look for a teacher who will encourage you to be free.
Exactly, exactly. Because I think when a student does, like it has been the case over millennia in things like meditation, martial arts, yoga, name it, you know, that you drink from several sources. Uh, what's the problem with it? If people want to study with this guy or that guy or that guy, just to find out what the different facets are of a certain system or of a certain school, then the best thing is that you, from time to time, just go to different teachers and find also out about what is the approach you can relate to best.
Of course, and if
Yeah.
you have like we do, I know you do and
Mm-hmm.
I do. If you have an interest in Reiki, obviously you have an interest in healing. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you have an interest in healing, you don't have it only in one modality, but you have it in
Mm-hmm.
general. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So I know for myself, if I hear about modality or so and I like it, I go and learn it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, Reiki is my main thing, but I've done lots of other things too. And I think
Mm-hmm.
all the people who are into healing are like that, just the same way that the musician
Sure. They
will
learn all the time.
expand,
Mm.
or maybe even learn many. I know have many musician friends that play many instruments. Huh?
Sure.
Okay, they have their main, maybe they play
Yeah,
guitar
yeah,
or flute, but they also know how to do this. It's normal. Yeah? So
yes, of course.
Reiki
Mm.
mixes very beautifully, because whatever you do with your hands always comes out when
Mm.
you touch somebody. And as I mentioned earlier, even when you're not touching people, it also comes out because it radiates out of your body all the time. Yeah,
Mm.
there's this constant radiation of energy that comes out, and people sit next to you on the plane or so, and they start to feel good, not because you're great,
Yeah.
not because you're special, no, just because the Reiki comes out of your body, and it does its job. Huh?
Yes, it does. Yes. When you come into a room, you feel often the tingling in your hands,
Yes,
that
yes, yes.
when there is some disharmony, so the Reiki just is being pulled in there, like with sick people or so, and does its job. It creates the flow of yin and yang in an equilibrium. That's one of the wonders of Reiki, which I always admire.
Yes, I remember we did the first workshop we did together in Germany, in Hanover at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
We were experimenting with that, how many, over what distance you could feel the flow
yeah.
of
That was
energy. It's
nice.
amazing, huh? Far away, huh? Through the
Oh
whole
yeah,
room, you can
yeah.
feel it. And now I must tell you a funny story. I don't know if I ever told you this before. Huh?
Me too.
I was in Mexico City giving
Mhm.
a lecture, and we were talking about exactly this thing, the radiation of energy from your hand. So I was telling them in English, I said, oh,
Mhm.
and then I was doing something with Walter Lübeck, and
Mhm.
the translator translated, oh, and then I was doing something with Guadalupe. Guadalupe is a Mexican girl's name, and they were all sitting there and saying, what was he doing with Guadalupe? I still laugh about that. I still laugh about
That's so hilarious.
it.
And who is this Guadalupe?
Who's Guadalupe? Who is this woman? I thought he's married to her. So I could see all the movies, but luckily I caught it, because I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
have some good listening comprehension of Spanish. Ay, ay, ay. Yeah,
Yeah, I think for today we covered all the topics we wanted, and there is much more to come during our next meetings, and I'm looking much forward to that.
yeah. I mean, the problem with the two of us is that the more we talk, the more stuff comes up. But I hope you guys that are watching, you are enjoying this, and it encourages you to be free and to discover yourself. There's only one way to do Reiki, and that is your way.
Yeah, practice it, do it your way.
Thank